Busters Radio.
Well, to put it back into Iowa context, I think, in my opinion, the reason Rick Santorum did so well, the main reason is he had been so low in the polls. He'd been at 1% and 2% for a long, long time. He was on none of the other candidates' radar. They just ignored him. So there were no negative ads about Rick.
Right.
And
there will be this week.
Oh, sure. But in Iowa, there weren't any. He was on no one's radar. And I think he used what I like to call the Frank Finkel strategy. Now, Frank Finkel was he was the only man in George Custer's C Company that survived the Battle of the Little Bighorn. He didn't survive because he was like brave or crafty or anything. It was just that he had a slow horse. and he couldn't
Did
get
you say Fred Finkel?
Is that
the name?
Frank Finkel.
Frank Finkel.
Yeah, he couldn't get to the battle on time.
Man.
So
it's 7:30 and we're already doing Frank Finkel quotes. That's amazing.
Well,
Is it a slow news day?
That's a slow Steve day. But yeah, no, Rick followed the Frank Finkel strategy. He avoided the media crossfire. He came to the battle too late to be killed. But you're right. There are more battles to come.
There will. Speaking of which, one of the candidates that did pretty well in Iowa, actually, Mr. Ron Paul. There's an interesting story that we could talk about.
You want to talk about Ron Paul?
I would like to do that.
Let's talk about Ron Paul.
'Cause I am crazy just like you. I am crazy just like you. I don't think I need a rubber room, but that might be nice. I'm not a manic depressive, paranoid, schizophrenic, so I don't need your advice. 'Cause I'm just crazy just like you. I am crazy just like you.
I pulled that song out of the rucksack just for you, Bob, and I dedicate that to you and Ron.
Bare Naked Ladies. Nice. The BNL. I miss those guys.
One of the best young bands around. I did get to see them a couple times, and you know what I like about them? They'll be playing one of their beautiful songs, and they'll just break into Smoke on the Water or something,
right.
And they'll play 4 bars and then go back to the song.
Are you aware that a lot of people are aware, you may or may not be aware of this little trivia fact about Bare Naked Ladies. Did you know that the show Big Bang Theory, that the TV song, theme song, it was written and performed by Bare Naked Ladies?
We were talking the other night, about modern-day composers.
Right.
And, Frank Zappa being one, and Jeff Lynne being one. And the Bare Naked Ladies are one of those bands that are just... Those guys are going to be there in 20 years. You're going to look back and see the body of musical work that they've done in TV and cinema, on CD.
Children's records.
Yeah.
They have some great... I mean, if you have not checked out... If you have young kids and you are looking some very positive music for your kids... Check out the Bare Naked Ladies. They have put out a couple of children's records that are absolutely wonderful.
That is if you can, tell your 7-year-old kid, hey, look, it's the Bare Naked Ladies.
What kid wouldn't giggle at that? Come on. Yeah. That's great. I like that. That is a great name. When you talk about great band names, Bare Naked Ladies was a stroke of genius.
What?
I thought so.
Okay.
Because it gets people to say, what'd you say? Who?
Yeah. Okay, Ron Paul. You're
who?
Yeah.
That emits a who.
Who? What?
Right. Well, yeah. Since we're talking about the media, I would like to spend a couple of minutes talking about Ron Paul. And I guess the question I would have for you, Steve, I have my own opinions and I'll comment, but I'm going to give you first shot here today. Why do you think the media, and I say media at large, meaning liberal media, conservative media, drive-by media, all of them, they love this guy? I mean, it's like they just can't help but froth at the mouth every time Ron Paul's name is mentioned, and they like to keep him. They keep stoking that fire. They keep stirring that pot, keeping that name out there. What do you think is the allure?
Oh golly, don't get me started. This is The View from the Left, or there was a time years ago when I found Ron Paul to be extremely attractive as an alternative to to what I saw as no other alternatives.
He's not that good looking, Steve.
But
He's not that good looking.
I think he's sort of cute.
Okay.
But then again, I've got vision problems. Well, he's a media godsend. He's a boon with quotes like. We don't think a child of 13 should be held as responsible as a man at 23. That's true for most people, but black males age 13 who have been raised on the streets and who have joined criminal gangs are as big, strong, tough, scary, and culpable as any adult and should be treated as such. I mean, when somebody says something like that, how about order was restored in L.A. when it came time for the blacks to pick up their welfare checks? He said that after the L.A. riots. He calls New York City, he says, I want to rename New York City Welfaria, Zooville, Rape Town, Dirtburg, Lazyopolis. He's a journalist delight. That's why I think.
So, well, I mean, you could read all those quotes, but here's what I'm talking about, Steve. If those things are true, if those terrible sentiments that you've just admitted there are really true of his character, why are the liberals so in love with the guy? It could be for one of two reasons. One, they are really fond of the man, and they think that he may offer some credible validity to the race this year. Or, as I suppose, number two, they would rather run against Ron Paul than anybody else because they think he'd be the most beatable of the top dogs in the GOP.
Well, you know, that second point is a good one, and I think I have no doubt and I'm never right. I mean, don't ever follow my betting strategies on the sports games. Not that I bet. I'm smart enough not to, but I can't imagine Ron Paul being electable in the country, you know, for dog catcher.
There's only one plausible strategy where he is electable.
Well, and I think we might agree on it. Is it his anti-war stance?
Well, it's his anti-war stance, but it's also, as we have quoted many times, about 1/3 of the country is diehard Democrat, about 1/3 of the country is diehard Republican, and there's about 1/3 that are kind of shift back and forth. That wandering generality that's called the independents.
What about the other third?
There's more than 3/3?
Oh, I was never good at math.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that if the third is going to the independent, he's very attractive to a lot of independents, and because of his stance on pulling the military back, getting out of all of our military activism around the world and bringing all of our soldiers home, which I don't disagree with that. I would love to see all of our soldiers come home. But sometimes you have to be in certain places. He seems to be more of an isolationist when it comes to foreign affairs and military activism and that kind of stuff. And I think that appeals to a lot of independents. So he might be electable from that stance. If you're going to get the Republican vote and the independent vote, you could certainly win in November.
Well, absolutely, and I don't think he will get the independent vote because he is either so far off the cliff to the right or so far off the cliff to the left, which, by the way, that brings up my mental vision of the political spectrum. I think a lot of us looked at politics as a straight line. On the far left was the far left,
right.
The lunatic fringe, the hit by preverts. On the far right were your gun-toting, Bible spouting, survivalists. Well, you know what? I've come to see it more like a circle where those two ends come around and meet. There are many, many similarities. And in fact, I think that's why we're sitting here talking. Because
right.
I think we both see those similarities. There's a lot to be said. For example, Ron Paul doesn't want small government. He wants what they used to say. He wants government to be small enough where you can drown it in a bathtub. He wants. He does. He wants to. He wants to get away. He wants to do away with just about everything. He's in 2009 on an interview. He said, "Get rid of the Department of Education, Department of Agriculture. Just go down the list. Get rid of it.
That.
Cut the budget in half." That's a good place to start.
Busters Radio.